what makes you different from every other financial advisor in your market? Why do your clients choose you? When I look at the firms that have unlocked scale, that have really started to be able to stand out in one of the most commoditized industries in the country, financial services, the difference between those that scale and those that do not, those that differentiate, those that do not, is this lesson from today. Every big company that's bigger than just an individual has done this. And this has been proven over and over in firms in every marketplace. This is one of the biggest keys to unlocking scale and building a business that's bigger than you, that can outlast you as a financial advisor. Welcome back to another episode of Do Business, Do Life. Back for another solo episode. And this one is an extra special one. In fact, this is version 2.0 of the very first solo episode I ever did on my prior show. An episode, Process versus Product, was what we coined it. So think of this as version 2.0. And actually, as I was really thinking deeply about this, I think a better name would be Why Most Financial Advisors Are a Commodity and What to Do About It. And really, this methodology, this thought process has been, I would say, this philosophy has been formulated over the last 20 years of thousands and thousands of hours of conversations with independent financial advisors, their struggles, what gets in the way, and really gets down to the core question of, what makes you different from every other financial advisor in your market? Why do your clients choose you? In fact, I'm going to start with this story. There was a $1 billion plus RIA. This was probably close to a decade ago. And I remember we first engaged in a coaching conversation, and we were really getting down. I think they probably had 5 or 6 advisor pods, had grown very quickly. I think they'd gone from 0 to $1 billion in under a decade, which was pretty insane 10 years ago. And I remember when I asked the president of the firm, what makes you different? In 30 seconds or less, what makes you different than other financial services firms in your marketplace? By the way, before I give you the punchline, I'm going to encourage you, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit pause. If you're listening on audio, hit pause for a second, grab a piece of paper, write this down, like right now, just for you, for your specific firm. What makes you different? Why do your clients choose you? So anyway, I'll give you a second to hit pause. Okay, welcome back. And this firm, what they answered, they said, we build financial plans. And they weren't joking. Literally, they're like, we build financial plans. And so I took a pause. I took a second. And I said, what do the other advisors in your marketplace do? And they kind of tilted their head. Actually, I remember the president looked to the founder, and it was kind of like this light bulb moment. And they were like, well, I guess they probably build financial plans too. And in this story is a lesson that when I look at the firms that have unlocked scale, that have really started to be able to stand out in one of the most commoditized industries in the country, financial services, the difference between those that scale and those that do not, those that differentiate, those that do not, is this lesson from today. And it's really how to move from selling a product or products, annuities, ETFs, asset managers. All of those are just financial products. Call them ingredients in a financial plan. To selling a process, but not just any process, not just a financial plan, a proprietary, trademarked process that is one of one. And there's really 3 lessons I want to share with you today. So I'll give you a brief rundown, and then we'll start to unpack these. Lesson number 1, packaging is key. Think of this as productize versus commoditize. And I'll explain what that means in a second. Lesson number 2, why do you exist? Oftentimes I see financial services firms, they're like, here's this thing, let's sell it to people. We hope people buy it, as opposed to starting with the end in mind, Covey's 7 habits. What do our ideal clients, the niches we're trying to serve, what do they actually need and want? I remember learning this lesson early in my podcasting career directly from Michael Hyatt. He said most podcasts, YouTube channels, fill in the blank. The problem is they just start recording episodes and then they say, I hope people listen. I hope people watch, as opposed to saying, who is my ideal listener, viewer, audience, and saying, what do they actually need? Same concept. So think of this one as aspirational versus informational. A lot of people that sell products, oh, here's all the stuff you need to know. Buy this, buy that. Here's the features. As opposed to, what do you want? What are you aspiring? Where are you trying to go? You think about a financial plan, retirement. What's the promised land? So aspirational versus informational. That's lesson 2. Lesson 3, simplify the complex. In financial services, we have the curse of knowledge, and that's a very dangerous thing. And I'll share why one of the top selling products in the history of Shark Tank, I believe it's still the top selling product in the history of Shark Tank, how they got this right and what it unlocks when you want to be able to attract customers that buy your product. So, okay, let's dive in. Lesson 1, packaging is key. Okay, let's start with a snapshot of financial services. Very, very commoditized. Hundreds of thousands of financial advisors in the United States of America. If you're listening or watching this somewhere else, same in Canada, same in the UK, same in Australia. I'm very fortunate. I know I've got listeners and viewers all over the place, but what's interesting is it's the same problem in just different markets. And when you start to unpack this, lessons that can be learned from other industries, sometimes we get so focused on financial services, we don't just like take the blinders off and say, how's this work in other industries? Okay, let's think about the food industry. One of the hardest industries in the world. Margins are so low in the restaurant business. Let's think about in America, one of the top selling food products in every single market. I mean, even Minneapolis, Kansas, small town Minneapolis, Kansas, had a hamburger stand. So if you think about it, how do hamburger stands differentiate? Most don't. Most, it's just, here's the hamburger and pay a fair price, move on, they all blend together. Well, the number one franchise in the history of franchises, a place called McDonald's, we're all familiar with, what do they sell? Primarily hamburgers. What did they do? They took a commodity, a hamburger, and they turned it into a product. Proprietary, trademarked. You can only get it there. So let's think about this. Their most famous hamburger, the Big Mac. In reality, what is it? Just a maybe souped up hamburger a little bit. It's throw an extra slice of bread in the middle, throw some Thousand Island on it, 2 patties versus 1. Not that different. Still pretty commoditized when you think about it. But what they did was they productized it. And here's where I want to draw the parallel to financial services. How would a hamburger stand do? How would McDonald's do if in their branding, in their marketing, they said, hey, come in, we've got this amazing lettuce. We've got tomatoes. We've got sesame seed buns. We've got beef. And they literally just, all they did was just listed the ingredients. What's interesting is we do this all the time in financial services. Maybe click on your own website. Services, retirement income planning, investments, risk and fee analysis, tax planning. Go down the list. Think of that like the ingredients on a hamburger. It's all there. Does that simplify anything? No, it's just more overwhelming. So if we look at packaging and productizing, what McDonald's did was they took the hamburger, they turned it into a product. It's proprietary. You can only get it there. It's a specific recipe. Very similar to a financial plan. So back to that opening story I told about the $1 billion RIA, they're building great financial plans. They just had horrible packaging. They were packaging it like a hamburger versus a Big Mac. And so too much to get into today. If you're watching this on YouTube, I know it's super easy to leave comments. So if you want a different version of this, there's actually a very specific way, steps to take to trademark and protect and make sure that your proprietary process, whatever name you give it, is not taken by another financial advisor. That's a very painful lesson, by the way. I had an advisor that had to rewrite a book, rename a podcast just simply because he didn't trademark properly. So don't do that. But I won't go on that tangent, but what you do is you name Dan Sullivan, who I was fortunate enough to have on my prior podcast. He was so determined about how important this was. He actually trademarked how to name and trademark a process. And if you think about this, it's really important. Every big company that's bigger than just an individual has done this. So back to Big Mac. Those ingredients, now we say, I know there's a lot of different names out there. I'll use one of the firms that I mentioned in my prior version of this conversation, a firm on the East Coast, SHP Financial. They've been featured on Kitsis's podcast, one of the firms I've seen just nationwide that does this really, really well. In fact, this was the secret that when I first met them, I think they were bringing on about 8 to 10 million of assets per year. This year in 2024, as I record this in November, they're pacing for north of 300 million of assets organically this year. So if you think about that scale, what makes that possible? They packaged their process. Theirs is called the SHP Retirement Roadmap. What are the ingredients? It's built on a CFP standard. This is not rocket science. Income planning, investments, tax planning, healthcare, legacy, estate. So once again, nothing that's probably too different if you're another advisor listening into this. But what they did well was they packaged it, they trademarked it, and guess where you can get the SHP Retirement Roadmap? Only at SHP. Very similar to the Big Mac. You only get it at McDonald's. And so now what we've done is we've packaged it, we've trademarked it. Now you can market it. Now you can start to communicate how is it we serve our clients. Now, if you're trying to add multiple advisors to the team so that all of the weight is not on your shoulders as the founder, so your revenue doesn't go on vacation when you do, which, by the way, is a pretty common need with many firms we work with at Triad. It does another thing. It transfers trust. I remember one of their early advisors, a guy named Joe, great dude. He was bringing in 15 to 20 million of assets a year as a 25-year-old. How was that possible? Because no different than McDonald's, an 18-year-old can run that, basically a whole store, the systems, the processes, but the ingredients are the same. You don't have one person at one cash register making a Big Mac and another person at another cash register making a Whopper and basically custom building their own hamburger recipe on each individual register. That would be a nightmare. There would be no possible way to scale that. What's crazy is you see that all the time in financial services. I was just having a conversation last night. There was a firm that flew in to entertain partnership with Triad, 12, 13 different team members, 2 advisors on the team. They said advisor A and advisor B, they don't even have the same planning process. They don't even build financial plans the same way. This is a massive problem when it comes to scale. In fact, it makes it impossible. You can't scale a personality in this business. And if your planning process is built on your unique sales process or personality, it's just going to constantly get in the way of scale. How was McDonald's able to scale? Same product, same recipe. It's scalable. Now, that doesn't mean you can't order a Big Mac without pickles or without onions or without tomatoes. Just like a financial plan, these can still be built in a proprietary way specific to that individual you're serving. They've just got the same core ingredients. So with that, I'll get off that soapbox, but this is the key to unlocking scale. And this has been proven over and over in firms in every marketplace. In fact, James Knoll and Dave Zoller, I was just chatting with them the other day, and they specifically mentioned that early podcast, Process versus Product, where it kind of clicked on the light bulb for them in both of their firms, where they said, oh, this is what it's going to take to unlock scale, to add multiple advisors to the team. So this is not rocket science. It's been done in many different industries, many different businesses. But what's crazy is it's oftentimes not done in finance. And think about the importance. You're working with people that have worked 30, 40 years of their life to build up this nest egg potentially millions of dollars, and your process isn't as tight as a hamburger stand like McDonald's. That's wild, right? So that's why this stuff matters so much. The other thing, and I've seen this a lot, I've been fortunate enough to fly out to probably hundreds of different financial seminars at this point and just sit in the back row and observe. There's actually groups out there that teach you, hey, do you want product A, B, or C? That's their close at the end of the seminar. There's a lot of companies, financial services companies, they'll pay for your seminar if you just try to sell their product. Well, you think about the resistance and the lack of trust in this industry. That kind of feels like walking onto a car lot and it's like, hey, every car has the same emblem on it. Of course, they're going to sell you. If it's a Ford dealership, they're not going to sell you a Toyota. I can tell you that much. So if you think about financial services, if you are there pitching products, specifically somebody else's, that now different, like creating your own proprietary product and process, that's different from selling somebody else's product. But I've seen firms where it's like, do you want product A, B, or C? And I will tell you, unless you want to be Amazon or Walmart, that is a very bad business model. That is a race to the bottom, because now you're commoditizing yourself. Now you are offering the products that every other financial services firm has available in the country. And just like you would shop for a used car, all you're going to do is Google, price shop, this better offer, that better offer, and now it's the race to the bottom. So that's why it's so important to productize versus commoditize yourself. Okay, let's get to lesson 2. Why do you exist as a firm? And I heard it said once, this was an outside business speaker, his words, not mine. He said, most financial advisors talk like a spreadsheet. And if you think about it, much more informational versus aspirational. Step back to starting with your client, your prospect. What do they want? What do they need? What serves them? We had a speaking coach come out a couple of times. His name's Pat Quinn, brilliant guy. Love Pat. Pat, if you happen to hear this, big fan of your work, have learned a lot from you. And he said it, I love what he said. He said, if you picture your prospect calling up their brother, their sister, their mom, their dad, and saying, hey, I'm really concerned about fill in the blank, or I really hope that I'm able to fill in the blank. And what you see oftentimes in financial services, hey, here's the Sharpe ratio, the beta of this one versus that one. And it's just like, it's like you're a doctor speaking in Latin and all this jargon, and it's going straight over your prospects' heads. And the crazy thing is most prospects won't tell you this because they don't want to look dumb in front of you. They don't, especially a husband and wife. The husband sure doesn't want to look like he doesn't have it put together financially in front of his wife. And so you kind of back them into this corner of confusion, and they just don't tell you. They just give you the standard, hey, I want to think about it. We'll get back to you. And then they never call you back. So if we look at aspirational and how that phone conversation would sound, it'd be like, hey, I want to make sure we've got enough when it all comes down to it in retirement. Hey, yeah, I was really hoping that we'll be able to take, a trip a year. That's one of my biggest hopes for retirement. Hey, I really want to make sure we've got the funds to visit the grandkids a couple times a year out in California or out in Florida, flying across the country, that sort of deal. Or I'm really concerned about what's going to happen with taxes with the new president that just got elected. That's a pretty hot topic right now, right? So that's how real people talk. They don't talk in jargon, financial jargon. They don't talk in financial services talk. And we just call it the curse of knowledge. And so back to aspirational versus informational, one of my favorite examples of this. Well, first off, let's look at Nike. Nike sells a very commoditized product, shoes. There's hundreds of options out there. But if you look at the campaigns they've done all the way back to even the 70s, but mostly think about the Michael Jordan the Bo Jackson commercials when I was growing up. That was very much aspirational. It was like, hey, these are the shoes Michael Jordan wears. These are the shoes that allow him to fly. Bo Jackson, Bo knows fill in the blank, and he was doing every random sport under the sun. And then at the end, Nike. Sometimes it wouldn't even show the shoes. So that was very aspirational. These are the products that these elite athletes are using to do the things they do, the amazing things that we watch on and wish we could. And the same thing works in our industry. One of my favorite examples, Mike and Jess, actually, they came on the show. We'll put their episode in the show notes. So Mike and Jess, Arcadia, and one of the coolest things that I've seen, they came on board, and I love Mike. He's just a straight shooter. He's like, man, our brand sucks. And he was talking about his own brand. He's like, it was a railroad. They had done some like railroad crossing thing, like, are you on track for retirement? Something like that. And he's like, I don't even like ours, so I don't even know why our prospects would. Which gets to another point we could hit, the belief you have in what you do. Why do you exist? You better have a belief behind it. If you're not excited about it, I can tell you your prospects won't be either. And so we started to unpack this, and shout out to our team, the coaches, Kristen Shea, who's the intro on every single episode, who helps on the product side. And we have a process that we developed. It was not easy, but it's called the launch plan, where we kind of extract the DNA out of the firms we serve at Triad. And so we started interviewing Mike and Jess. What would it look like? Like, what lights you guys up? And for them, their favorite day of the week is Saturday. And we started to unpack this. And then Mike's like, oh, I love to wake up, hit a workout, coffee. And like, he started to unpack his perfect Saturday. And then Jess started to unpack hers. And what was born out of this was live like every day is a Saturday. So if you go to their website, arcadia.financial, it doesn't feel like a financial services website at all. You won't see, charts and graphs and spreadsheets. What you'll see is, think about that as a retiree. Man, you've slaved away for all these years. What's the Saturday feel like? Saturday feels great. Wake up whenever you want. You don't have work the next day because the next day is Sunday. It's a full day to make what you want out of it. That's a pretty aspirational thing. Like, I'm kind of getting like some good vibes right now just talking about it. And so if you look at the outcome of the work you do and the packaging, and now you think about it, hey, work with us and we will build a plan that helps you get here where you want to go. Now, obviously, in financial services, disclosure, you can't promise outcomes, but you can say, this is our goal, is to help you achieve this. And with a proper plan, it's like a roadmap, will help you get from point A to point Z. And the cool thing, Donald Miller, big fan of him, StoryBrand, he talks a lot about the guide. And if you think about it, he uses the example Star Wars. The hero is Luke Skywalker. The guide is Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? So if you think about this, your prospects, your clients, they're the hero in the story. You're helping them get to the ability to live every day like a Saturday. You, the financial advisor, are simply the guide. And this proprietary process, the XYZ retirement blueprint, the XYZ roadmap, that is the packaging that allows them to get there. And it's really cool. I mean, I know this seems a little pie in the sky sometimes. One of the things, it's universally true. I mean, I at this point, I can speak with full confidence. I've seen this transform dozens, probably at this point, hundreds of financial advisors, if you look at the before and after snapshot. And the key thing, though, is you've got to have a belief, because it will feel like you're a phony the first time you truly engage this. And we say a lot at Triad, language creates. Sometimes you have to speak things into existence. And if you've been doing things a certain way for 10, 20 years, and now all of a sudden, hey, we do financial plans, now it's the XYZ retirement blueprint or whatever, it will feel like you're trying on a new suit. It's going to take a second to kind of get comfortable in it. And one of the hacks for you people out there like me that grew up was in college in the early 2000s, there was kind of a cult movie called Super Troopers, and there was a meow game. Maybe we'll link to it in the show notes. It's pretty corny, but the concept was they would count how many times you could say meow in a conversation before the other person figured out you were like working in there. Like, all right, meow. And so anyway, I challenged one of our offices out of Chicago, the Vantage Point guys. They also came on. And because it was kind of like, hey, they created this new thing, but it's like, we've been saying this the other way all this time. And so these three partners, Tim and Nick and Jeremy, started challenging each other. Hey, how many times did you say, the XYZ, whatever? And when you start to work it in, what you'll see is the light bulb starts to come on, because what you're starting to do is saying, hey, we've got this thing. It's well thought out. And what it allows us to do is walk you through the steps easily so that we can get you where you want to go. Back to packaging, right? Instead of listing all the ingredients, which is very common in financial services, now it's like, hey, just do this. It's worked hundreds of times with all of our other clients, and it gets you from here to here. So let's move on to lesson 3, back to the curse of knowledge. Oftentimes I've seen prospects leave a financial advisor's office more confused than when they came in. So you think about that. It'd be like going to the mechanic. If you're me, I'm not a engine guy. I know there's a lot of guys out there that love that stuff, but it's like, it's broken. Can you please just fix it so it can drive again? If that mechanic popped the hood and started explaining all of the intricacies of an engine, the spark plugs, the carburetor, that's about all I know, I would be like, my eyes would glaze over and I'd be like, I would check out mentally. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of prospects do in meetings. They just don't tell you that. And so lesson 3, the firms that win and scale the fastest, they simplify the complex. I brought a prop for this one. It's the best selling, I believe, fact check me on this, I believe this is the best selling product in the history of Shark Tank. Any guesses? The Scrub Daddy. If you're listening on audio, I'm holding it up. We'll put the actual Scrub Daddy pitch in the show notes as well, which if you're listening on iTunes, you should just be able to scroll down. But if you deconstruct that pitch, one of the brilliant things that he does is he talks about it, and then he walks over to the sink and he's got props, and he has all of these dirty, the green and yellow sponges that I think everybody's my age seen growing up, the steel wool, the Brillo pads, all that. So he's got a stack, and of course it's set up perfectly because they're all dirty and like they've been used for about the last 5 years. And he says, all of that you can get rid of because this replaces it all. And he says, all you need is this one thing and you can do all of this. And then he dramatically demonstrates. I remember famous copywriter Dan Kennedy, some of you might be familiar with. I was in a conference with him up in Cleveland, Ohio. This is a decade plus ago. And he told a story about the famous magician Houdini. And he said, what's crazy is if you actually study him, he didn't do that many tricks that other magicians of the time didn't do. But what he did was he did dramatic demonstration. So if he got out of a straitjacket, he just didn't get out of a straitjacket. He was hanging upside down from a crane, 40 stories up. So he made it a little more dramatic, right? And if you think about sales, it's just a transfer of belief. And sometimes you have to exaggerate it a bit, I guess. So if you think about this and the exaggeration, the dramatic demonstration of the Scrub Daddy, he says all of that and he throws it out. This replaces it. Then the little mouth here, he takes a spoon, a serving spoon. He's like, look, it cleans both sides. He puts it in the little mouth. And then he takes these two holes here. He puts them down into like a beer mug. And he's like, look, you can scrub the inside. It's super easy because you can just twist it. So he does this dramatic demonstration, but he simplifies the complex. And how that applies to finance. Oftentimes, I heard it said, a confused mind always says no. And I believe that to be true. And a lot of times, if you're peppering them with, okay, here's the income plan. Okay, we could go with product A, B, or C. Here's how we do the investments, and here's the risk and fees, and here's this portfolio versus that portfolio. And oh, don't forget about this tax planning strategy. Oh, and healthcare, we got to cover that. Oh, wait, and then if you pass away, let's make sure this gets transferred properly. One decision at a time. So this is a whole nother conversation, but unpacking the journey to go from I'm uncertain as a retiree, I'm not sure if I'm okay, my financial life kind of feels like the kitchen junk drawer. It's a bunch of statements that I've accumulated over the years, to everything's taken care of in a CFP standard level financial plan. You've got to take step by step and unpack that. But step one, what are the problems they're trying to solve? What's keeping them up at night? What are their concerns? Step two, engage. Yes, I want help fixing those. And that's where the simplify the complex, that's going to be another conversation. We coach most of our firms a process where they move everything over, engage them there, and then they start to do the asset allocation on the backside. Oftentimes, many firms do that backwards, where they put all of the before and after. Hey, here's where you were. Here's all the changes we want to make. And then they're surprised when they get a lot of, I want to think about it. It's because you're giving them 15 different decision points versus, hey, here's the one thing that fixes it all, and we make it super easy for you. So back to simplify the complex. The other thing on that Scrub Daddy pitch and on every Shark Tank pitch you'll ever see, and I talked about this in the first conversation of this, most financial advisors, they don't have a sample. They don't have an example of the product. Especially if you look at the demographic of most retirees, they read newspapers. They're not reading their news on an iPhone. And so something tangible. I've been to so many seminars over the years where they talk about, hey, here's how we help you. And there's no example of, hey, here's how we build the financial plan. Here's either the binder that they hold up. These days, a lot of this is done electronically in different financial planning softwares. But there's no dramatic demonstration of, hey, here's the kitchen junk drawer of all the statements and everything. And now here is our organized XYZ retirement blueprint to make sure you're covered in all 5 of these worlds. And we make it simple. We make it easy. All you have to do is we'll walk you through the journey one step at a time. And so that's a really big lesson when it comes to our industry is, are you simplifying their understanding for how to go from uncertain to spending with confidence in retirement? Or are you actually making the world more confusing to them? And that's, unfortunately, I've seen many financial services firms that do the second, the latter. Okay, so we're a ways into this conversation. I don't want to make this a marathon episode. I'll leave it with one other thought. Great business models allow you to be lazier. I know that sounds silly, but think about it. Amazon started selling books. Now they sell you everything. And most people will pay more on Amazon due to the sheer convenience. I can buy pretty much everything on there with a search and one click, and then it's at my door a day or two later. Uber. I can pull up an app and have a car waiting for me in 5 to 10 minutes. Oh, now they can deliver food. So if you think about simplifying the complex, also the delivery mechanism, and one of the trends we see is the true firms that have scaled to the highest level, not are they simplifying the complex on the delivery of the financial plan that is built on that CFP standard. They're actually also simplifying how you get there. Oh, it's super easy. We walk you through it one step at a time. And so it's not just the communication of it, it's the delivery of the financial plan as well. And that is, and if you even expand on that, some of our firms that have gotten past kind of stage one of this, stage two of it is, how do we bring kind of a family office approach to the mass affluent so that you don't have to have 10, 20, $30 million, but now we've got one-stop shopping for financial planning, which typically includes income, investments, but now tax planning so that they don't have to drive across the city for their CPA, who oftentimes doesn't even know their financial advisor's name. Now we include estate planning. There's another party involved. We did a conversation not that long ago with Tim from wealth.com. So how do I combine the worlds of tax planning, estate planning, financial planning, one-stop shopping, and make that easy and convenient delivery and packaging? Many of our firms have now gone to a Zoom interface as well, so that you don't even have to drive in if you don't want to. So a lot of different ideas here. But what I can say very confidently is this is one of the biggest keys to unlocking scale and building a business that's bigger than you, that can outlast you as a financial advisor. That this show is called Do Business, Do Life, a business that blesses your life, that doesn't become your life, that allows you to actually hang out with the family. And what's cool is actually build a team and make their lives better, because you can employ more people in your community, make a bigger impact. So with that, here's my call to action. If you're watching this on YouTube and this something in here like hit home with you, and maybe a light bulb or two turned on or made you think a little bit differently about how to build, send this, subscribe, number one, would love that. Leave a comment. I love a comment that actually talks about like what specifically in here hit home with you, because then I can do more content around that. Or if there's something I missed that you wished I would have covered, put that in there too. I read all of them. And send it to a friend, send it to another advisor, get their thoughts, trade some ideas, create a little mini mastermind. So with that, and then I'm also going to, I think I'm going to do a special offer where I kind of filed away version 1.0 of this. But if those of you out there want that, leave some comments on YouTube, use the DBDL Insider hotline and just text it back, and we'll see if we can unlock that for you. So with that, thanks for listening in, and I will catch you on the next episode. Take care.